Welcome to Leading for Life Stories Season 4. I'm Bob Judson. I'm the host for this podcast, and thank you very, very much indeed for joining me. Whether you're a new joiner or a seasoned listener, then I really hope you enjoy the mix of content that we provide. The personal stories, the thematic episodes, and of course, the fantastic guest interviews. If you've been with me since the beginning, then I'm enormously grateful for your loyalty and thank you so much. If you're relatively new to the show, then I really hope you like it, and I hope you find all of it interesting and some of it hopefully useful to you. Please subscribe on whichever channel it is you're using, whether it's YouTube, whether it's a podcast platform. That really helps us boost the show and get it over the hills on the algorithms. So if you can do that for me, I would be enormously grateful. But without further ado, let's go. Welcome back, everyone. This week, I thought I would do a thematic episode, and I'd talk about a topic which I think is increasingly important in all sorts of spheres of life, personal one, geopolitical one, work one, leadership one, any of those. And that's about ownership and accountability and being accountable for your actions, owning your actions, being really honest with yourself and with your team about how that actually works. And I thought I'd do it for a couple of reasons. As I record this, the world is obviously to some extent in a bit of turmoil as a result of the Israeli and American action into Iran and the wider kind of regional war that is coming from that. And I was listening to a couple of podcasts, not my own, although very keen you listen to my one, but there are some other great ones out there as well. And one of those was The General and the Journalist, which is a podcast I quite like by The Times. And it's a former colleague of mine and friend of mine, Patrick Sanders, General Sir Patrick Sanders, and Tom Newton-Dunn, who do a great job of talking about geopolitical and particularly defense-related affairs a lot of the time. And they were quoting a thing from the time that I think Colin Powell was around in the US and was obviously former Secretary of State, but before that, former Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And it was pottery barn rules was the description, which is if you break it, you own it. And I think that is very, very applicable to kind of conflict situations where obviously you have to think through the consequences of your actions and be prepared to turn around and own it as a result. But I don't want to get into the kind of political conversation here. That's not what this is all about. I want to think about it more from a personal leadership and personal life point of view. I read a book a little while ago, which was recommended to me actually by one of my participants on a Deloitte course called Extreme Ownership by a chap called Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, two former Navy SEALs who wrote a book about this. Now, I listened to the book on audio. My personal recommendation would be read it rather than listen to it, because if you listen to it, it's a bit like you listen to two guys chewing nails, because these are kind of clearly real hardcore guys who are talking about this in a very special forces kind of way, and that comes over. But I think the points they make, a lot of the points they make, are really, really good. I don't agree with everything in it, but I agree with an awful lot of it. I think fundamentally, if you're leading something, you need to own it. You need to be clear that if the outcome isn't what you expected, even if it wasn't while you were there watching it, then ultimately you still own it. If you think about big team events and things that have gone on where actually you've tasked people to go and do something and they haven't quite done it in the way that you expected and the result has not been what you expected, then ultimately it's still down to you as the leader. If you look at Patrick Lencioni's work and the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and you look at the triangle that's in there, then creating accountability is firmly part of that whole process. Building trust in the first thing, and that allowing some robust debate is the next layer in it to create accountability, because you want people to feel they've had their view in what's going on, but ultimately then you're creating the accountability. But you as the leader are the ultimate accountability person. You have to be. You have to be recognizing that you are essentially owning the result, good or bad, and protecting the team. If the team does stuff to the best of their ability within the bounds you set, doing the things you asked them to do, and it didn't work, then ultimately you have to protect them. You have to own it. You have to look after it. And I think that's something that some of the time is lost on people in leadership roles. that they need to really be looking for a better way to protect the team and a less of a way to funnel bad stuff down onto the team. The worst kind of leaders, in my view, are the ones who immediately, when something has gone wrong on their watch, they become Teflon coated, nothing's going to stick to them, and they actually want to look down to who can I blame down below me and pass the buck so that somebody else takes the fall for this. I think that's terrible leadership. Almost invariably is that terrible leadership. The only time that is acceptable to do that, in my view, is to turn around when somebody has deliberately broken the rules, deliberately ignored the boundaries they were given, and has gone and done something anyway. Then, in which case, fine. That's a different situation that you shouldn't necessarily be protecting them from, and you should absolutely be taking action to resolve that. But if you're in a situation where they've done their best and they've just not got it right, or they've made an honest mistake, or they've screwed up in some way, and they come and tell you about it, and that was my kind of contract all the time would be, I'm telling you the box I want you to work in terms of the rules and the boundaries I'm giving you. I'm telling you what I want to achieve. Now go on and go and do it. Come back from that and tell me if you need help or you need further support. But equally, come and tell me if something's gone wrong, because I can't protect you if you don't tell me and someone else outside, usually above my sphere of influence, actually then comes in and tells me about something that's gone on. That's not going to help. If a client comes knocking on your door as a leader and telling you about something the team has done that you weren't even aware of, it's a very, very much more difficult position to defend. That if you know what's happened, you've already taken some action about it and you have a plan, and you can then take that plan straight back to the client in that kind of instance. So I think it's incredibly important to think about this in all aspects of your life. What you do, whether you're owning your own mental health, fitness strategy, work-life balance, all the rest of it. You own that. You're not, you can't turn around and blame other people for this has happened to me, that's happened to me. Far too people are too willing these days and too eager to look for somebody it's their fault. It's not. Ultimately, it's got to be, you took particular steps to do particular things, or you didn't do particular things. You need to be thinking really hard about, what have I done myself that could have changed the outcome of this, could have changed the way this has been approached, et cetera, et cetera. Looking for people to blame is generally a fool's errand, I think. I think you need to be really, really clear that holding that accountability dear and making sure you are very, very clear with yourself that ultimately you've got to turn around and look after the team. You've got to protect the team. You've got to protect yourself. You've got to make sure your own outcomes are what you want them to be. And I just think it's worth a look in the mirror a little bit about this, because I do think some of the time it's easy to turn around and tales of woe about this has gone wrong, that's gone wrong. Well, what could you have done about it? If I look at myself at the moment with what I do run in the business I run, when I turn around and have shortages of work some of the time, is that because actually it's just really bad? The market's bad. No one's turning around and hiring. No one's looking to get training consultants in. Nobody wants coaching. Nobody wants speakers. Blah blah blah. Or is it because I'm actually not doing enough work to turn around and pipeline and sort myself out? Firmly, it's the latter, in my view. I think the market is still there. There is still stuff you can do. There's still work you can do. And if ultimately you're still unsuccessful, or at least you can turn around and look yourself in the mirror and be, well, I did absolutely everything I could, and I'm still struggling here. Now we need to find an alternative course of action. But very, very often that alternative course of action is, not going to be needed, because actually if you take the right steps to really drive yourself to a better place in terms of accountability and ownership, then actually you're going to be getting the right results. Because the two things do come from, results come from, owning it properly, having the right team trust, having the right resilience within the team, having a real focus on those results at the top end of it. So I do think this is something worthy of thought, and I think pops into my head that it would be an episode worth talking about this week, just because ultimately I don't think we do it that well. So if you go back to look at that Patrick Lencioni model that I talked about a minute ago, 5 dysfunctions of a team, at the bottom of that, you've got build trust. Essentially, that's the foundation stone of the whole thing. At the top of it, you've got results. You actually want the results to come from that. And in the middle, you've got three other layers. Those three other layers are starting with robust debate, conflict. You want the conflict. You want to turn around and get everyone in the team to turn around and have a chance to really voice their view, so that even if their view isn't actually the one that wins the day and is carried through, at least people feel they've been heard. They've had a chance to actually air their view and get it out of there. They're not going to be ultimately bought in, and that's the next layers, a couple of layers we're going to get to. They're going to be bought into the result if they don't feel they've had their view even given any kind of listening to. So it's really important that you allow that conflict. The next layer up is commitment, because what you want is you've had the conflict, you've had the discussion, you've got the trust at the bottom of the triangle. Now you're actually in a position where you're going to get some commitment from the people that you're working with, because they feel, yeah, okay, I might not have won with my own argument, but at least I can buy into this is the way we're going to go forward, and I'm following the leader on the basis that I kind of trust where they're going. And then ultimately that leads you to accountability, because what you don't want is, you don't want as a leader to feel that everyone's walking away from the end result because they didn't buy into it, they weren't committed to it in the first instance. But equally, you don't want the people within the team to be turning around and just being utterly dismissive of that either. Well, it wasn't my idea. I didn't like it anyway. I wasn't listened to in the first place. I was never committed to the outcome. You need to be in a position where people are hopefully, they've had the trust layer, they've done the conflict bit, they've got the commitment side sorted. That gives them the accountability that then ultimately leads you to a position where you get the right results, because you've got all of that one commitment bit. Now, very importantly, on the accountability and ownership side, the other really important thing as a leader is to make sure that you are providing back down the team structure some huge degree of credit for their work in that whole process. There's nothing worse than you get great results and you've got a leader at the top who basically goes, yeah, it was me, that was fantastic, it was all my effort. No, it wasn't. No leadership result is generally because of your personal leadership exclusively. Yes, it might have helped shape it. Yes, you might have got the team to a place where they actually really like working with you, following you, etc. But at the same time, the team's effort is what results in getting the right result through. Often people talk, about flying in the Air Force, for example. As a single seat pilot in the Air Force, was I solely accountable for the results we achieved? Absolutely not. There was a huge team of people behind every mission that we flew, from the obvious ones like the engineers that service the airplane, but also the air traffic controllers that put us in the air, the fighter controllers that actually control intercepts, etc., the support aircraft crews that would actually fly to give us air-to-air refueling or provide us information to go into operational areas, etc. Or on the ground, again, the supply chain, the people that are actually sorting all of that out on the logistics side, the administration that hangs everything together. These are important elements of your team. So thinking about it holistically as a leader is also part of what I think you should be doing in this. It's not just about your microcosm of what you actually do. If you look around your organization and you look at the enabling services elements of that organization, literally the guys that are on security, the people who are cleaning the building, the famous NASA story with President Kennedy, I've talked about it before on these, where walking around visiting Cape Canaveral as it was at the time and talking to the chap that's sweeping the hangar and saying, what do you do here? And the response is, Mr. President, I'm helping to put a man on the moon. And it's not a flippant comment. The point was they had created that team structure that really everyone was accountable. Everyone owned it. Everyone believed they were part of that mission. That's such an important thing if you can achieve that to try and get you to that right space. And when it goes wrong, of course, and people don't do that, then the team walk away from the result. They're not interested if it's gone wrong. They say, well, we didn't like the leader anyway, never listened to anything we said, didn't care about us, didn't support us. And so they're not unified behind you as an individual leader if that's the situation you put yourself in. And equally, if you don't provide the credit back down, people get disenfranchised. He took all the credit, she took all the credit. We didn't get any kind of proper recognition for what we'd done. Why are we bothering to put all this effort in if actually we don't get any support and help and credit for it? And that all matters. And again, I've talked about this on other episodes where saying thank you is so important in any kind of organization. So really think about how you can make a difference doing that. What sort of stuff you can do that is going to help to be more, make you more accountable to your team, make your team feel they're accountable together overall for the results, get the commitment from the team that's there, how you as the leader are going to own the outcome, whatever it is. Even if it's gone wrong, was that the team's fault or was it your fault because you'd not given them adequate briefing, adequate instructions, adequate frame of reference? All these things play together in a way that is massively important to turn around and get the best dynamic you can from a team point of view. I don't want to belabor it. That's the message that I was trying to get out on this podcast, which is going to be a really short one, because it feels to me that we are in a society at the moment where we are walking away from this too much, which is why I wanted to talk about it. There's too much. It's somebody else's fault. It's somebody else's problem. It wasn't me. It was them. Well, no, you need to look hard in the mirror and turn around and go, how much of this is down to me? What could I do? What could I do that makes a difference? What could I do to play my part in having a better collective outcome in what we do? That's what I want to leave you this week. Really hope you enjoy it. Thanks very much indeed for listening. If you've enjoyed it, please share it. Please pass it around. I really appreciate that. Please subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Please follow if you haven't already followed on whatever platform you're on. All of that makes a big difference. And if you are willing to do it, please think about financially supporting the podcast. It makes a huge difference if you're prepared to do that. Just go via the support the show link in the show notes on YouTube or the same on any podcast platform. It'll take you to Patreon. It'll get you an opportunity to sign up as either a supporter or a champion or a patron of the show. And a little bit of money makes a huge, big difference to what we do on the podcast. So thanks ever so much. Take care. Have a great week. And we'll be back again very soon. Got some guests to come up now. Bye-bye.